Now notice verses 5 and 6. It shall be when he shall be guilty in one of these things, that he shall confess that he hath sinned in that thing, and he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin, which he hath sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb or a kid of the goats, for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his sin. Now, the offering is a sin offering, but it was because of a trespass. Now, you see, confession is commanded for the first time. This is the first time God said anything about it. And up to this time, of course, hasn't been secret sin. The fact of the matter is the offering was an open admission. Now it's a secret sin. And therefore today, this is to be brought out in the open. You remember old Achan, when he took that wedge of gold, Babylonish garment, that had to be dealt with publicly because it was that kind of a sin. And we find here the laying on of hands in the other offerings was an admission of sin. And here, confession comes first and then the offering. See, in the sweet savor offerings, the offerings preceded any thought of confession. Now, the opposite is true here. And I think this is what our Lord had in mind in the Sermon on the Mount. He says, therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and thou rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, go thy way, first be reconciled to thy brother, then come and offer your gift. Now the believer today is to confess his sin to God privately, but make restitution to the injured party. And trespass offering just simply means offering of guilt. It was a sin offering, as all sin, you see, comes from that nature that we have today. Now we are told in verse 7, and if he be not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring for the trespass which he hath committed 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons. Well, this is for the poor people. But suppose he couldn't even get a bird. And he shall bring them unto the priest, he shall offer him. And then we're told here that the blood must be shed, because the head of the bird had to be removed. And it reveals here that the sinner has complete forgiveness even with the little bird. But notice this, but if he be not able to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he that sins shall bring for his offering the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a sin offering. In other words, he just bring a piece of bread. That's all he'd have to bring, so that the poorest of the poor are not left out. Now you have, beginning at verse 14, non-specific acts of sin committed in ignorance. Now there are a lot of things that are not specified. Listen to this. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, if a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the holy things of the Lord, then he shall bring for his trespass unto the Lord a ram without blemish out of the flocks, and so on. Now, we have here these non-specific things. This is a wrong committed through ignorance, and it has to do with robbing God in connection with tithes and offerings. This is something that I wish we could go into in detail, but we can't do that. Then we read in verse 17, and if a soul sin, commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of the Lord, though he wist it not, knew it not, yet is he guilty, and shall bear his iniquity. Ignorance of the law excuses no one. That's true of civil law. And then verses 18 and 19, he shall bring a ram without blemish. And here again the ram is given as the only animal for the trespass offering.